Uh, I got my car back. This has been a saga. Um, well, wait, I don't know when the last no, it's only been like 3 days, 4 days. Um, I had, a contractor come to my place, and I was like, "Oh," they they ran out of time to work on something, and they're like I was like, "Oh, here, just, instead of having to fuck with it, like, just store it in the garage. It won't get anything dirty or whatever." And then, like, somebody, like, brushed something over the hood of my car and puts, like, huge scratches all over it, and he's like, "Oh, shit. Sorry, we'll pay for that." But I take it to, like, a detail shop, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll buff that out. That'll come out. They'll buff out, and we'll just, like, overspray a little bit." And they burnt through the clear coat and then, like, fucked up the paint, and then they're like, "Okay, sorry, we'll pay for that." And and then and then I take it to the paint shop, like the actual body shop, like not just like a detail shop, and they just finished. Like I dropped it off Monday, and they like literally repainted the hood of my car, which I like wouldn't be like a huge like pain in the ass about if it wasn't like literally like a 9-month old car that I bought new for me. Um, it might have been a thing where I was like, "Oh, you can forgive me a little bit of the contractor bill, and I'll just, like, paint over it with a paint pen or whatever." Um, if it wasn't that way, but, yeah. Anyways, it was just, like, 3 people fucked up in a row, and I finally got my car back. Um, so that was the saga of the day, but high trust society. Because I haven't come out of pocket for any of it, which is nice. But I do need to square up with the first two guys because like nobody wanted payment. Like the detail shop didn't want payment until like you know the other people had finished up. I was like, well, I'm not. I'll I'll pay you, and then like the contractor will pay me back basically because and I know he's gonna be good for it because I only paid him 50% for the job so far, so he's like he can either finish the job or not get paid, um and $300 for whatever um is like a very trivial amount for him to eat when I owe him much more for the contracting work. So anyways, yeah, it's just been a saga, man. It's so funny that like went like 3 people down the line. Um let me what's a good Jennifer Aniston movie? Oh, that's good. Oh, well, okay, there's Friends, right? She's in Friends. Um I can't find a good what's her character's name? No. You know? It's it's Jennifer? It's Rachel. That's right. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, let me go live now on Tumblr. Okay, cool. So we had an amazing um New Year's podcast. Have we been back since then? Or no, we did the week after. Ulbricht. 33 minutes ago, he uploaded to his Twitter for the first time himself recording a video message, and I just watched it, and he's like, he just was saying thanks to all the supporters, thanks to Donald Trump, and after he has a little recovery time, he'll be out in the world, but um, he needs to hunker down for a minute and like appreciate that he just got his life back. What is the food like down in Florence, I wonder? I did drive past him once a couple years ago. I waved. I waved at him, and Ted was still there alive then too. No, they did hang out together. They did. There were reports that yeah, Ted and Ross were all in there, and also like the Taliban guy. Um, Yeah, and then Ross was like running a D&D campaign from with all the cellmates down there, and I just I love the picture where he's like, walking out and he's got his little cell plant, like I don't know. Well, it's not like they're not under solitary or whatever. Um Oh, I doubt that Ted would have done the D&D campaign because but he would have been such a wild card. That would have been fun. Here, I'm too blurry. I'm gonna put on a light. Okay, so wait, you were saying how would Ted Kaczynski view I think Ted would be into it. I think he'd be so into it. Not even a ranger, but like a druid, right? Paul A says, I can't hear anything you're saying. What? Let me turn on the stream. Paul A says, I can't hear Oh no, yeah, you're not transmitting. Yeah, you're not going through to the podcast stream. Thanks, Paul. We will fix this immediately. Let me since I'm the only one that can fill time right now, let me fill time.
Go.
You were just work on that. So Paul
Okay, I think I'm good now, but continue.
You think so?
I think so. I'm seeing both bars move. My bar is rising.
You are. Paul, speak to us. Is it working?
Paul, hey Paul. Sir Paul.
Oh, I'm waiting for the live stream to catch up to us. Is it working? Okay,
Paul, hey,
I don't know. Maybe not.
No, he can. I heard myself on the stream.
I think yeah. What would be yeah, Ted would be a druid.
He would.
And like or maybe a warlock or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, basically he'd be a spellcaster category for sure. Like it would depend on his specialty. Like I think he would cast fireball for sure. That seems like something he'd do with like an extra area of effect on impact, extra fire damage.
No, I thought there was like a warlock or like just like a general spell where you could like set traps and something where stuff explodes.
I think there is.
It's been a minute since I played D&D. Trap spell explosion. Let's see.
You can tell we just
fire trap.
Fire trap.
Okay,
There you go.
fire
Fireball,
trap.
fire trap. He
When
would be
someone other than you opens an object, a fiery explosion fills the area within a 5-foot radius around the spell's center. The flame deals 1d4 points of fire damage plus 1 point per caster level, maximum of plus 20. So, I mean, if you're like
for sure.
obviously a level 20, caster like
Level 20
Kaczynski
fire
was,
druid. Oh.
um, it's a lot of damage, man.
Yeah.
So, you could easily one shot a lot of airline employees. Everybody forgets about that he like bombed airlines as well as
Oh,
like universities.
yeah, that's not cool. Universities, it's
Anyways,
fine, but airlines, that's like just normal private traffic. That's not okay.
uh, so okay, yeah, the D&D games at Florence Supermax would have been wild.
Mm. Wonder what
I
Ross
wish.
would have been.
I think he was DM, so I
DM.
don't think he
Okay,
had playing
so no, he
character.
wasn't playing. So, oh man, this
I
is like
mean,
the
he would have been all
opposite.
the NPCs or whatever.
No, it's true. This
He's
is
just a
like,
facilitator, right? Like
yeah,
that was his crime in the first place. Is that he
he can't
provided
stop. He
a
can't stop.
Craigslist for magic mushrooms traded for Bitcoin, you know?
I wonder. This is it. Imagine who else was there. It's kind of like the opposite of like a Nightmare Blunt rotation. Is like a Dream D&D rotation. You've got Ted Kaczynski as Fire Druid. You've got Ross Ulbricht as your DM. What else we got?
Anwar al-Awlaki as a cleric.
Cleric. Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Uh who else is in Florence
Let's
Supermax?
see.
I kind of wonder right now. There like we ran out of serial killers and stuff like that
Mm,
in the US or
let's see.
notable uh prisoners and stuff.
There are a bunch of people who were held there that were famous who aren't anymore. Like,
Yeah, a lot of them get moved to like more general.
ooh, Zokazar Zarnev, the one of the Boston Marathon bombers, is being held there.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that checks out. That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. I forgot about that, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
There's a lot of foreign terrorists there.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Oh, the shoe
Uh,
bomber, Richard Reed.
okay. Yeah.
Let's see here. Ooh, Zacharias Muzawi, one of the 9/11 co-conspirators, allegedly.
Um, yeah, it's a lot of like terrorism
Yeah.
dudes
Ooh,
and
Umar
stuff.
Farouk Abdul Mutalab. He was the underwear bomber. It's looking at his picture. He looks like a fucking underwear bomber.
Hmm. Okay, I'm just looking for okay, so there were some mob guys like Salvatore Gravano for the Gambino crime family, Vincent Basciano for the Buonasano family, Thomas Silverstein of the Aryan Brotherhood prison game. That's a weird last name for an Aryan Brotherhood guy, but
Silverstein. Hang on, let's pull up his early life section real quick. Hold on.
sorry, just noticing. Howard Mason, um I'm not sure. Okay, Ted Hernandez, Nostra family. But that's the thing. Like Ross Ulbricht was in here with like foreign terrorists and
Yeah.
like crime family dudes and the
Oh my
Unabomber.
god.
I mean,
Yuki
and
Umura, the dude who like the cult Red Army dude who let off the sarin gas in the fucking like subway in Japan, I think, like served a
oh,
sentence there partially because I guess he killed the. Hang on, let me make sure of this. You remember the Japanese Red Army? No, this is a different dude, maybe. No, never mind, different guy. Looks exactly like that dude, but they
oh,
found him
okay.
carrying a bomb in his luggage. It's man, all right,
It's
but
just
yeah.
imagine being some libertarian kid who made a like Craigslist but with Bitcoin,
Mm.
and you're like in like serving life prison sentences with like crime bosses who order like actual hits on people and terrorists from Al Qaeda and like the marathon bomber and all this shit. Like,
Oh, you got spies too. You got Robert Hansen, who was a Soviet spy. Oh man, Christopher John Boyce, who got convicted for selling satellite information to the Soviets. What else? Organized crime. Yup, 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 yup. Other. Ooh,
No,
other.
no, we went through it, man.
All
It's
right.
just like it's so um it would be a great sitcom at a certain point.
Just
Like I
super
honestly
max
he
D
should
and
sell
D.
his
Oh,
story. Oh dude, if he sold his like him like doing a DM campaign with like the terrorists and like crime
oh
bosses
my fucking god, dude! Could you
as
imagine?
like a like who's the guy who does Rick and Morty and then Harmon.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
the
could
name, but
see him like animating it like the story of Ross
oh
Ulbricht.
my god.
That'd be so funny.
Oh my god.
Uh, I'd love it. All right, we need it immediately. So we'll
If
see
that
what
if that
the
comes
book
out,
deal
we
looks
thought
like.
of it first. We thought of it first, like it's Ross's
Yes,
life.
we are
But
owed money.
yes, there's got to be a way to make money off of this, and we will find it because we thought of it first. So Ross, I mean, I'm not saying, damn it, making a libertarian respect IP laws. I don't think that's gonna work. I
Yeah, it might be
don't.
a little silly, but I want to cut, man.
Man, I want my cut
Even just like make me a little,
a little bit.
give me a little showrunner credit or something like
Yeah,
that.
just
I'll even
something.
help out from time to time. And I'll do voiceover work
Oh
for
fuck
like
yeah,
whatever.
absolutely.
It's fine. So shit, I can even animate a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
So I mean,
we got through Ross. Or any closing thoughts on Ross?
I'm just glad he's out. Like again, I made a post. I don't know how many months ago. People were like, "Oh, he's going to release Ross," and I'm like, "Okay, when he's actually out, you can celebrate." And he's actually
No,
out.
and
So
it took a day too. It
yeah,
took
it
a
did take a day.
full
Yeah,
calendar day of him being president,
but
and
he's out.
everybody was yeah.
That's all that matters. He's out.
Um, yep, yeah. And no takesy
No
backsies
takesies
either.
backsies. Ollie ollie oxen
So
free, motherfuckers.
speaking of other pardons, did you see who else was pardoned by the previous president?
Yes, Fauci was.
That's so weird.
It's
Why
so
would
weird.
you?
Why? I mean, he didn't do anything. At least that's what we were told. So I just don't understand what he could possibly need a pardon for. You know, like
Yeah,
be one heck of a coincidence if he actually did do something. Like, yeah,
it'd be crazy. I mean, it's not like it's the guy who's been giving us medical advice about infectious disease for 40 years.
yeah. It's not like the
Um,
guy who's like the real bad guy. If you've ever seen the Dallas Buyers Club, like he's the the face behind that miracle fucking drug that was killing people. But you know,
well, what was curious to me is that like there was like the credible proof starting like to come out, and I think Rand Paul,
mm.
the based senator from Kentucky, was getting very close to like having a real like tangible paper trail of like Fauci was getting kickbacks from these pharma companies. He was the one who got um he was the one who lifted the approval for gain of function research in um outside of the US,
Mm.
and then was directing funding to the Wuhan lab. And then like the mRNA vaccine and everything like this. I mean, it's just like everything was there.
So I
It was
also
all
want to refresh all of our viewers real quick on what exactly gain of function is. Gain of function, if what I read is correct, is another word for saying the lethality of a virus. So like
not
how no,
not really, no.
not really no.
No.
Okay, so what
Gain
is
of function research is to take a virus and then breed it
mm,
basically artificially in order to have it gain new traits. Now that could be lethality, it could be
okay,
transmissibility,
okay,
it could
okay.
be anything like that. But essentially, what it is bioweapons research. That's what we used to call it back in the 60s and
Ah,
70s.
mm,
But now it's under the guise of, oh, we're going to create the next virus before it comes out or
mm.
breeds naturally, and then we can make a vaccine for the virus preemptively. So that's where yeah, the gain of function, it's gaining functions. It could be resistant to cold, it could be resistant to hot, it could be able to survive in air for a longer period, it could be that it reproduces faster at certain time. It's a million different things.
Mm.
But there used to be that game online where it was like Pandemic.
Pandemic. I think there's Pandemic too. Yeah, where you're trying to make a
Yeah.
disease that infects the planet, and like
Yeah,
Madagascar
you get
always
little
shuts down
evolution
super hard.
points for mutations or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
the general thing is like, Ebola is incredibly deadly,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very difficult to transmit. Like basically you have to get the blood of somebody with Ebola on you
Mm-hmm.
to get Ebola. And like, Ebola spreads because like people are coughing blood, or like the blood's going everywhere from their orifices and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. It's really horrific.
Yeah.
But generally, like if you take the proper quarantine procedures, like you can stop Ebola pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrific, and then it mutates very quickly to become a non-threatening thing after like it passes through just a few people. Is generally the thing. But the counter of that is like the common cold. Common cold like kind of sucks to get. You get a
Mm-hmm.
little fever maybe, but you
But
got a runny
incredibly
nose.
infectious.
Yeah, it's just super infectious and stuff like that. But like gain of function research is where like, oh, in a laboratory, I can make something that's super infectious and super deadly.
Sweet. We'll get Madagascar this time, guys.
Oh my god. So yeah, that's gain of function. And yeah, normally it was normally banned under fucking, like, bioweapons research is universally banned, and people don't actually do it nowadays, except for the US basically
Hmm.
keeps funding these bioweapon labs
Hmm.
in like China and also Ukraine,
Hmm.
of all places.
Hmm.
The USSR had a bunch of bio research labs for like looking into viruses and bacterias and stuff like that. They
Mm-hmm.
keep stuff. Um, not I'm trying to think of like the World War I, World War II, or not World War II crap, but because they didn't really use bioweapons in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
But in World War I, they were playing with like the idea of different um I mean, well, there's anthrax, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hey, let's look up list of bioweapons. Botulism, foot and mouth disease, ricin,
Mm-hmm.
smallpox. Like they have samples of smallpox. Smallpox has been eradicated in nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they have samples of smallpox that they keep in bioweapons labs in case they wanted to fucking reinfect everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And plague and stuff like that, and avian flu. And they keep messing with, or like, it became illegal in the 90s. The Soviet Union collapsed. They're like, yeah, we're not going to fuck with this stuff anymore. But then they were like, oh, we can't just like let Gaddafi pay for one of these bioscientists to like make a new version of like the World War I bird flu that killed 20 something million people. So like we're gonna keep them employed, but they kept paying them to do research. They didn't like pay them to like sit around and like fuck her off. They just like kept paying them to like make new diseases that could totally fuck people up. And so like, who knows what COVID originated as. It's probably some, I mean, coronaviruses are the common cold, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
was deadly among infants and the elderly, right? So they made it mildly more deadly than it was before, because I mean a common cold can kill an elderly person.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's not like influenza. The weird thing about like the World War I influenza, which really originated in Kansas, not in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a Spanish flu. It was the Kansas flu. Um, is that it was deadly to like people our age, people not the young and the infirm or whatever. But yeah, they just fucking have all these weapons labs, and they keep paying for them. And the funding got shut down in like 2016. Like it was one of the first things that was happened back in the old Trump administration, and they just moved the things out of the U.S. like all the funding and then like, laundered the money basically with all these NGOs, which is the same story for all like the immigration and shit like that.
Mm.
Anyways, I all this stuff is very verifiable. I just didn't have a like PowerPoint setup to show
I
you
mean, we
all
don't
this
need
stuff,
a
but I
PowerPoint,
know.
man. Like everything we say is true and right. So our viewers know this. But like yes, like you said, everything is verifiable. And that would make a good segue into immigration because that was another executive order that was issued this week.
Yeah, so have you, I mean, there's been a plethora, right? So
Mm.
what I'm going to do is refresh my drink, but you start on describing those orders you've seen.
So I will, yeah. So the other one, I guess, is canceling birthright citizenship, specifically the CBP One app, which the only thing I really saw about that was apparently there were some people in a facility down in Venezuela who were waiting for appointments that were scheduled for this app so that they could enter into the United States using immigration something. I don't know. But all their appointments got canceled, and all of a sudden the app is just like, yeah, so no more appointments for the day. And of course, the fucking blood sucking journalists are there to take pictures of these people reacting to their appointments getting canceled on the spot. And of course, they're upset. And like, I do feel bad for them, but on the other hand, I'm just like, that sucks. Oh well. Maybe you'll just have to find a different way.
I'm trying to imagine. Have you traveled to a foreign country before?
Not yet. I was thinking about maybe taking a road trip up to Canada this summer, but we'll see about that.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Okay. That should be pretty breezy
Yeah.
and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I want you to imagine driving somewhere to like North Dakota in a field and then running across the border in the middle of night and then demanding an asylum appointment with the Canadian Border Patrol.
That would go over very well. I think there'd be no problems. I wouldn't get shot. I wouldn't at very least have guns pointed at me. I wouldn't be put in a cage. I wouldn't have a man with plastic gloves searching my crevices. None of that would happen. I would just immediately be granted appointment, and I would get a house and food stamps and anything else really I need financially provided for me by the Canadian people.
You
Absolutely.
would get fucking shit canned, man. Like
Yeah, man.
a week.
Just getting abused by Mounties. What are you doing in Canada, eh? Please leave Canada now, eh?
But so like I've been to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Canada is straightforward if you do it legally,
Of
right,
course.
as a US citizen. In I've done France.
Mm.
So and I did France as both a minor and as an adult, and Switzerland and
Mm.
I guess technically Monaco, and Belgium I've been to too, but they're all Schengen area, so it's not like it's a big deal. But as a minor to go to France,
I
this is
was
the
gonna
thing that
say.
makes me laugh about fucking undocumented minors. As a U.S. citizen to go to France as a minor, I had to like personally go to the French consulate and get a signed visa
Wow.
from like the consulate office of France. I mean, there's one in every major city basically. Like Denver's got one, Salt Lake City's got one,
Mm-hmm.
LA and San Francisco and New York. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't have to travel more than a couple hours, few hours anywhere unless you're like in the middle of bumfuck nowhere um to get to a French consulate because we're good allies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And seems true for Mexico if you were like trying to legally travel from Mexico to the US. But anyways, the yeah, the like I went, you have an appointment, you just present your papers, you're like, I'm gonna be here from this time to this time. They make you verify that you have hotels to stay in the entire time. You have to buy health insurance
Hmm.
for being in Europe. because they will not let you free ride as a US citizen on European healthcare.
Oh, interesting.
They don't want you to do health tourism and just pay for a plane ticket and be like, "Oh, my hip hurts, replace my hip, $60,000 surgery." You have to
Really?
buy health insurance to travel to Europe.
So they don't
Yeah.
just freely give out their health insurance to anybody who just happens to step foot on European soil.
No, if you arrive on a boat from Africa,
Oh no, yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do health tourism, you need to fly over to Libya first and just hop on a boat and just like sail across the Mediterranean. Maybe not Libya, that'd be a little bit too far. Morocco, probably a little bit easier. Yeah.
yeah, there's the islands south of Italy, like not Sicily, but there's some smaller islands, like,
Mhm.
and that's where all the migrants go because like they just want to get to the closest little bit of EU territory, and then they can get refugee status or claim
Ah,
asylum status or whatever.
so that's how you do your
But
health tourism.
yeah, that's how you do health tourism. But anyways, like yeah, I'm like 16, 17 years old, and yeah, I like it's not like it's super expensive, right? But like they just want to screen it out. Uh and it depends on how long you're going to be there and like what activities, like if you're going to go skiing in
Mhm.
Switzerland or something like that, like your health insurance can be a little pricier cuz like, oh, you could break a leg or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to purchase, they make you purchase insurance. And then yeah, you have to have like all your hotels booked. Now it's a little different if you're like backpacking and you're like, "Oh, I know of these hostels that I'm going to stay at and like this travel, but like I'm backpacking in the Alps." Like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you don't have to have like every night booked
Mhm.
for that." Like but they expect you to have like a hotel beginning and end for all of that, like, and you have to show receipts for all this shit too.
Wow.
And this was like, I don't know how it's changed in the last 15 years or whatever. uh Not even 15, like 14 years, 10, 9 or 10 years, 11 years. Sorry, I realizing how old I am. um
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Great feeling. um so they yeah, but it's just like, oh, from the US to go visit like our longest standing ally that helped us win independence from Britain, and like we're the two republics, and like we shared all this history, and like Thomas Jefferson and like Napoleon back and forth and all this stuff, like we were like two sister nations for so long.
Hmm.
um like you couldn't imagine how easy it was for like uh like think about Basquiat and like Tocqueville and um all this stuff. Like maybe I'm showing just like I'm a francophile because I studied French language and I'm like familially French and everything like that. But like there's the Revolutionary War, it was France was our big ally that won the US independence, right?
Hmm.
So um like there was no easier immigration for 150 years between US and France. Like it happened all the time. And just for visits and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just like the idea that like you can't just show up at the border and demand an appointment and then they fly you to get a free hotel and set you up and you get all the free taxpayer funded healthcare and stuff like that. It's so silly.
It doesn't
I can't
happen.
I can't believe people think it's like mean
To not
to
give
have
that
a
out.
system to not just give it out. It's like, what? I get treated that way by France. Like,
Exactly. Like, we can at the very least do that here. I mean, see, here's the thing. Like, we look at other countries and we're like, okay, this is what they do when we want to go over there. And we do have to remember that we are anarcho capitalists. So ultimately, no, you shouldn't have to necessarily, like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it would depend on what economic zone you're trying to cross into. Like, if there's some sort of like credit check or something like that, or something that just monitors what's coming and going. But at least as far as it's concerned with the United States today, like it's absolutely fucking insane just the amount of money we just give to these people for with like no oversight. And wasn't there this whole thing too? Like I'm remembering two specific things. One, of immigrant gangs in like Colorado that were gathering up in apartment buildings, and I guess they actually have addressed that now, but they were like robbing people, and like the police
No,
would.
they took over the apartments
Yeah,
and started extorting everybody for like surplus rent.
yeah, exactly.
Basically.
And then there was also like I just remember this one bald, I think Venezuelan dude, where there was this app that was for shipping originally, and like all of a sudden it was like, this is where you need to go and this is what you need to do, and like there was this whole slew of like immigrants squatting in houses in the US, and they were getting their squatters right like held up in court. Like this one lady I think went to her deceased mother's home in like southern New York and got there, and there's just a bunch of fucking people living in it, and she's like she tried to get them out, and the squatters are actually still in the home because squatters rights. And I remember
No,
that.
I like we live in like this legal system that
Mm,
like has, courts and like procedural dates and fucking like, the sheriff has to get approval to evict somebody because there's,
mm,
like the rights of a tenant and stuff like that. And it's like even if you went, I think, down to, Guatemala or whatever, like, if you found somebody squatting in like your apartment or something like that, like they just fucking kick you out. Like they
exactly.
just call up the local sheriff and like they beat you up
I
first.
was gonna say, if they even call the sheriff, like their friends just kick your ass and throw you on the street, maybe the sheriff gets
So
involved. But
like
like,
we're like hampered by this high trust society where like
mm,
we give like a shadow of doubt to like squatters and stuff like that, where it's like we can't even like rightfully evict people who just like show up at your dead mom's house and
mm.
like they're like, oh, I figured out this place was uninhabited for
And
like a
they're not
week.
even citizens in some cases. Like, it's one thing if it's like a homeless guy who's born in the U.S. Still is not great. But like just some random fuckers who like got off the boat yesterday from Venezuela just showing up, and now they're occupying your dead mom's house, and oh, too bad they have
They don't even
squatters'
come
rights.
by boat. They're flown
Okay, they're
in a lot of
flown in.
cases.
Some of them come by boat, man. There's at least a few sailors among the horde.
Sure. The Coast Guard's kept it up. I'm
That's
pretty sure.
true. That's true. I've seen those swift boats, man. That's scary.
But okay, the biggest topic is
Mm.
birthright citizenship, though.
Yeah. So that's a little tricky, because didn't it actually extend to, okay, like if your parents are immigrants and they don't have legal status and you're born here, like if you're born here, you're born here. Like that's that. Like I understand there's also the whole anchor baby thing that goes along with that. Well, like, oh, I have my child on your soil, that means I have to stay. It's like, that's a separate topic, but like I don't like the idea that all of a sudden being born here means you're not a citizen because your parents are immigrants. Like I don't know about that.
Well, okay, I gotta read the text to understand what that.
Because there was
Um,
a judge, of course. We're already back to this. Judges are stopping executive orders that are undoing other executive orders, but we can stay the executive order that undoes the other executive order because we can. But it was about that specifically. The challenge was to basically that the change to birthright law was unconstitutional, which, if the attempt actually is to say no, you're not a US citizen if you're born here but your parents are illegal immigrants, that's some choppy water right there. Like that's not that's
I can see it not standing up in
yeah,
court, or I mean, it's gonna have to go to the Supreme Court.
cuz that's a
Um,
huge issue. That's
well, yeah, in the executive order, they say the 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to extend citizenship universally to everybody born within the United States, which
mm,
um like it's true from like a court case perspective. Like they've never tried that aspect, but that's just how it's been interpreted for, I don't know if it's been the better part of 100 years or
mm,
whatever, but um the so I'm reading the executive order from the Casablanca.gov
mm.
website, which, by the way, did you see they removed the
I
Spanish?
did see that the Spanish White House page is gone. No longer.
So so no so section 2 policy here. So the section 1 is purpose, okay? And that's them saying that um excluded birth the 14th Amendment has always excluded birthright citizenship from persons who were born in the U.S. but not subject to the jurisdictions thereof. Consistent with that understanding, Congress has further specified through legislation that a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a national and a citizen of the United States at birth, mirroring the 14th Amendment's text. Among categories of individuals born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the privilege of United States citizenship does not automatically extend to persons born in the United States when that person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States, and the father was not a United States citizen, or a lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth, or two, when that person's mother presence in the United States at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary, such as not limited to visiting the United States under the auspice of the visa waiver program or visiting on a student, work, or tourist visa. And the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth.
Okay.
It is policy of the United States that no department of agent or agency of the United States government shall issue documents recognizing United States citizenship or accept documents issued by state, local, or other governments or authorities purporting to recognize United States citizenships to persons when that person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States and the person's father was not as a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. When that person's mother's presence in the United States was lawful but temporary and the person's father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. This is wordy. Subsection shall apply to persons who are born within the United States after 30 days from this order. Nothing in this order construed to affect the entitlement of other individuals, including children of lawful permanent residents, to obtain documentation from the United States citizenship. Okay, so the rest is enforcement. I don't want to read all that, but
Fair.
what we're getting at is you were talking about like the anchor baby thing, and I think that's mostly what this seemed from what I'm reading right now. That's what.
No, that covers that exactly. Like that's okay. That actually clarifies that issue. So
they're making it seem like no immigrant can have a U.S. citizen born to them. When I think it's like if you have a lawful green card in the U.S., either mother or father, it seems like you get U.S. citizenship if you're in the U.S. born in the U.S.
Which is
so that's
fair. I mean,
it's pretty generous compared to even most countries.
Yeah.
To be real, like very few countries practice like jus de soli citizenship.
There you go with the French.
It's just like jus soli is the right of anyone born in the territory of a state to nationality or citizenship. So they reference the 14th Amendment, but again, that's never been tried in court, which is where Trump is going for on this, I think. The 14th Amendment was written to basically give freed slave citizenships.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like they're not citizens of another nation. They were people unwillingly brought to the U.S. They're not citizens of the kingdom of Timbuktu or whatever. So yeah, they claim that, and I'm on the Wikipedia page, that United States is a unrestricted jus soli, which is Jew is in blood and soli of the soil.
Jew
So
blood
Africa,
soil.
Africa says Chad and Lesotho. North America, a lot of countries apparently grant this, but even Canada. Do you want to hear of racist Canada's?
Yes, give it to me.
Our liberal progressive neighbors to the north.
The day of the leap is coming. Let me hear it.
Let's talk about Canada annexation before we finish.
Yes.
The Citizenship Act states that Canadian citizens by birth in Canada, including Canadian airspace and territorial waters, is granted to a child born in Canada, even if neither parent was a Canadian citizen or permanent resident,
Hmm.
except if the parent was a diplomat and service.
No UN anchor babies here. No.
No, that's so bizarre. In service to a diplomat or employed by an international agency equal to a status of diplomat. However, if neither parent was a diplomat, the nationality or immigration status of the parents do not matter.
So both
Okay, so
parents can be terrorists, but as long as they're not diplomats, it's fine. Your mom and dad can literally Mr. and Mrs. ISIS, but as long as they're not Mr. and Mrs. negotiates politics for another country, that's it. That's amazing.
it's wild. Okay. Yeah, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominica, El Salvador, Grenada, Guatemala, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico. Okay, Mexico provides that persons born in Mexican territory are natural born citizens of Mexico, regardless of their parents' nationality. Definition of territory includes vessels and aircraft flagged to Mexico traveling in international waters or airspace. Okay. Nicaragua, Panama, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Trinidad, and the U.S. There's a big discussion that we just talked about on that. Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, Guyana, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Oceania, which includes or Fiji and Tuvalu and Pakistan. That's interesting. But I'm gonna note I only read about like 25 countries there, and the U.S. is the largest of all of them that offer unrestricted jus soli. So I don't think it's like the weirdest thing to require like one parent to be a lawful immigrant
Yeah,
in the
that's
U.S.
not so. I speaking from an experience helping a friend of mine actually go through the naturalization process. She was a green card holder, and like normally the process is that if one of your parents is a US citizen but you are somehow not, like let's say you your parents are in Canada or they're in like Europe when you're born, because they are citizens, you become a citizen by law. There's a process there, but it's supposed to be like open and shut. But she ran into a little bit of a trouble because there was some like just some stuff that happened between her parents back in the day, but the fact that her dad was a US citizen was what ultimately made her become a US citizen. So the precedent for, yeah, you need at least one of your parents to at least be a naturalized citizen or a legal resident, like a green card holder, is not really the craziest or like most fascist thing you can think of. It's really not.
I mean, it's interesting to me because it's like if you look into citizenship processes for like a lot of European countries and stuff like that, like you can repatriate to a European country if you have like a certain number of ancestors, a certain number of generations removed, and like if you're willing to like move there and learn the language and pass a citizenship test, like you can reclaim like you know a certain citizenship in like Ireland or whatever, because they're like starved for population at a certain level. um but yeah, it's been an interesting experiment to have Jusoli for like I think it's really been like 68 basically is we've done like the full recognition of anybody just born in the US. Because a lot of citizenship questions were like up to the states up until then, and then there was the Immigration Act and stuff like that. I would hate that you would have people of no state basically. But at the same time, I don't know if that's as big of a problem. Like, but there is a question like, what is it? There's some crazy stats. Percent of Central American countries living in US. Um or I there's like some stat where it's like 12% of El Salvador is living in the US presently,
Hmm.
of El Salvadorian citizens and so on. And it's like, okay, all their kids are just US citizens from being born here. Maybe that's, I mean, that's the way it worked for like Italians, 100 years ago. I don't think it's like, but I mean, they were planning to be mostly permanent residents, the Italians in that respect. Whereas like the El Salvadorians, like a lot of them are sending remittances back to
Mm.
El Salvador and like planning to move back now that El Salvador is a livable place and
Isn't that a
like
joke you
arrested all
made?
the immigrants.
Didn't you make that joke earlier today about some advertisement in the UK talking about like sending money back to India to improve like their gutter slop?
Well, right, like what are remittances? So it like the app was like Remitry or something like that. But remittances are money you send across borders back to home.
Mm.
And let me read this off. In oh gosh, I wish there was okay, this is I didn't know this, but in Kyrgyzstan,
Mm.
um remittances make up 35% of GDP. In Nepal,
35%? Well, it's Kyrgyzstan, I guess, but like
yeah, I don't know what's going on in Kyrgyzstan.
not much.
Nepal,
Mm-hmm.
um, Nepal, it is $7 billion, or about 29%
Mm.
of GDP. In Honduras, it's 19% of GDP. Haiti, it's 30% of GDP, $2.5 billion.
What is it?
Um,
Uh, the Philippines, if that's available. I'd like to hear that.
I do wonder. I'm in images search. Okay, remittances as a share of gross domestic product in the Philippines make up 9%.
9%. Okay.
I don't know. So it's just remittances make sense at a limited status where it's like, oh, I have a high income, you know,
Mm-hmm.
child who's living in the US or whatever. They got one of those H-1B visas to be like a top earning tech, something like that, and they're sending a little money back to like
Mm-hmm.
make the parents or grandparents comfortable in the home country, and they can't like legally immigrate or something like that. But like on net, when like a country has like 35% of their GDP,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like you have this foreign labor force who's just living there generally temporarily to like transmit money out. And it's like as a libertarian, it's like what do I actually want to do about it? Like I don't really care that
Yeah.
much if people want to send money back home. Like what's the difference between them sending the money to um fucking like Kansas versus Kyrgyzstan or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like on a personal level, I do like to have like money stay in my like hometown as much as possible. Like I avoid going to chains and I go avoid going to franchises and I avoid going to like all these different little things that you could spend money on.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to like the local clothes repair shop and have them fix my jeans or something like that. Or I go to the local body shop. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
most body shops are local, but like yeah, I avoid going to dealer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like to try and like if I'm spending money, I try to spend money with my neighbors and stuff like that, just because I know there's a multiplier effect locally
Mm-hmm.
that happens versus, I mean, if there was a perfect distribution of labor, services, and goods globally, it wouldn't matter where you spent your money, right? Because it would just all wash. It'd be a wash, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is something happening with international remittances that isn't quite like that. Um, I'm not saying like tax remittances double. I'm sure they're taxed at like some ridiculous amount already.
Let's look that up.
When are remit? Okay, I can't find for okay, U.S.
Rents tax
U.S.
reimbursement.
Um. Okay, I guess taxes are completely or remittances are completely untaxed right now.
I was gonna say, yeah, apparently they are, and like I found this article about why it would be a bad idea to tax remittances. And I am not about to argue in favor of taxing anything, so
Sure, I mean, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Like, don't find the ANCAP podcast advocating why to tax anything.
Absolutely not. We're not doing that. However, we're just pointing out that they are not, in fact, taxed right now. So
I find it a little weird that
that is the
they didn't
case.
they didn't they're it's the one thing that's not taxed in the US.
That
Like
is, yeah.
I pay tax on everything I buy. I
Mm-hmm.
pay tax on all the like extra stuff I consume like gas or alcohol or firearms. I'll pay,
Mm-hmm.
an extra federal tax on. I don't pay an income tax to the state at least. But I pay one to the
The federal government.
federal government. Um, for any side gigs, I guess or for any business you would pay like a business corporate tax and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it really boggles the mind
Yeah.
that
Interesting.
remittances seem to be the one thing the federal
Just a
government
heckin'
wasn't on the
just a
tax.
heckin'
I was
coincidence. That's very interesting.
I just want my income to be treated like abuelas, okay?
Yeah, I want to get paid like I am receiving money from Jorge overseas. That's how I want my money to come in. Zero taxes, not looked into at all.
I, I'm not advocating that we tax remittances. I just
No,
wanted It's like Michael Mouse's famous quote, I just want to own the same guns I paid for the Taliban to
exactly.
get.
I just want to get the same tax rate that remittances get for people who don't actually have U.S. citizenship sending our money overseas to their family. That's all I ask for. That's all I ask for.
Simple ask. Simple ask. So okay. Remittances,
Mm.
immigration.
What else do we want to, of the executive orders? What else should we touch on? The Jan
Oh,
6ers, of course, a lot of them got pardoned, which that was another big promise.
did you see like there was like the DC police
Mm.
dragged their feet releasing everybody?
Oh, shocker. Yeah.
Yeah, and they like family members had to show up with executive orders like with their kids' names highlighted and like
Wow.
demand that they get the prisoners out and stuff like that.
That's wild.
Um
Fucking DC, dude. Like,
and then
a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
who else was there? There was no, Canada annexation. We need to revisit this.
We
Okay.
do.
Of the fighting age males of Canada,
Mm.
this is how every annexation question should be phrased. Of the fighting age males of Canada, what percentage do you think would genuinely be upset if they got annexed by the US? You're thinking about this a very long time.
35%.
35% would be upset. So you're
Yeah.
saying there's a 65% approval for annexation?
I would say yes. That would be my out of pocket guess as to the percentage because I'm thinking like, okay, half the population And then like what percentage of Canadian males are leftist cucks versus which ones are like, not really that leftist. Like they have to be because it's like you can't be like conservative or right wing if you want career advancement or whatever the hell you're doing. And then you have people in like British Columbia or
In a
Alberta.
secret poll, and which is an argument for having a secret ballot
Mm,
box, right? Um, so and that's where I would kind of come in
mm,
around that number too. I
yeah,
think that would be accurate. Um, I just don't think there's a lot of Canadian nationalism left.
no,
It's a post-national country
pretty
in a
much.
lot of respects.
Like it's been
Like
neutered. If you
25%.
it's been
Or go ahead. Yeah,
no,
let me look up the stat.
no, I was just gonna say it's been neutered pretty hard. Like it's almost like that was the whole plan all along was to just like introduce like this individual who instilled these policies, and the government was running a certain way for so long, and oh wow, it's very softened up for acquisition by its larger neighbor.
I
Hmm.
guess I don't know. 23% of Canada's population is immigrants.
Mm.
That's as of 2021.
Mm. And a lot of those are probably Indians, like a lot.
Yeah. Um, in the second quarter of 2024, this is all I can find. 96% of Canada's population growth came from international migration. Um, yeah, I can't see like a updated stat past 2021, but I'm
Mm.
gonna assume that yeah, it's basically 1 in 4 Canadians is an immigrant at this point, and they're basically all um from like Asia, the
Yeah,
Asian continent. So it's just it's wild to me that you can run that experiment and not have people say, well, like, are we the same country that we were 20 years ago or something like that? Like Canada at the end of the day is a monarchy,
mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the head of state is King Charles III.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's nominally like, this like coat of arms of the French and the Scottish and the English colonies and the First Nations people and all these treaties and all this history and shit like that. And it's just like, how do you at the end of the day say like, oh yeah, it was all worth it for like us not being America if
That
we're
I mean, if you think about it, it's just it's like the long game from the founding fathers and the founding of the country and the forming of like the original 13 colonies, and it's just one last L we can serve the British crown. Like we've been waiting
right.
all this time. This has been a strategy. Like everybody likes to joke and say that like Justin Trudeau is like the son of Castro. Like this goes way back. Like this is some bullshit scheme that Ben Franklin concocted with the French aristocracy when he was banging them left and right when he was an ambassador to France during the Revolutionary War, and they just over time they just manipulated things like the League of Shadows from behind the scenes and just slowly hollowed Canada from the outside in, or excuse me, inside out, and softened up for acquisition by the United States. It's
Well,
it's a long game.
it's crazy that it took that long, right? In some respects, but like it made sense that Canada, even just 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
like we Canada was its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I said on a podcast or two ago, it's like I've only had cousins who married Canadians who moved to the U.S., not the other way around,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And maybe I'm showing too much like Quebecois like heritage here, but like we still have like a little connection. And so like I have cousins who marry Canadians and stuff like that. They don't move to Canada after they get
So
married.
what you're saying
They
is
move
your
to the
family
US.
likes importing icebacks, just bringing them over the border.
Um but they okay, so remember the Articles of Confederation?
Yes,
You
like
remember
like it was
article
yesterday.
like it was yesterday. Article 11 of the Articles of Confederation. Um,
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. What the heck? I did not hit a button. I did nothing. We're being
It disappeared
sabotaged.
like only like maybe 30 seconds ago,
We're
but like
talking
whatever.
about arming the First Nation, and the stream just magically glitches, and it's not actually any of our faults. Huh. Huh. Interesting.
Okay, let's see if it comes back. Okay, there we go. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. We're good. We're good. So, Paul is asking, Trump ends affirmative action executive orders. Trump ending affirmative action executive orders. Well, affirmative action was just an executive order to begin with.
It kind of. It wasn't Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, it was Lyndon Johnson just signed an executive order and said like we have to prioritize.
Well, again,
Um,
anything you do by executive order, you can undo by executive order. That's how
so
it's supposed to work.
well, maybe like people didn't really realize. I feel like I didn't grow up with uh a legal knowledge of this, but because like they talked about I'm like the 14th, 15th, 16th Amendment, whatever. Um, and there was like, oh yeah, there was this ratification history, and it got tried in the courts, and they talked about it, and here's the enforcement and everything like that. And then there was just like the civil rights movement, and then there was like affirmative action, and they didn't mention like it. They kind of like hand waved and said like, oh, affirmative action was just part of the civil rights movement. When it was really just an executive order from Lyndon Johnson the entire time. And any person, any president that we've had since Lyndon Johnson could have just signed an executive order and gotten rid of affirmative action this entire time because that's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like maybe it served its purpose for a while or something
I
like
mean,
that.
you did, but you do kind of have to ask the question after a certain point. It's like, okay, at what point can we go, okay, we don't need this anymore? Like, because realistically, there should be a point where it's like, okay, we don't need this booster. We don't need this assistance. Like, things are working normally as they should without certain issues involving a segregated society that the United States used to be. So there was always going to be a time limit on that. And it was at some point, somebody was going to go, hey, we're undoing this EO. So,
All right, so I mean, actually, it goes back to Kennedy in '61.
of course it does.
Executive Order 10925, which included a provision that government contractors take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin,
Hmm.
which is like just basically an equal opportunity um,
Mm-hmm.
clause. Like that's not what we would think of as affirmative action nowadays, because
Yeah,
I think you and I both know what affirmative action now means nowadays is that you get preferential treatment based on
exactly. Yeah.
race. So the executive order 11246 in 65 from President Johnson prohibited employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin by those organizations receiving federal contracts and subcontracts. In 1967, President Johnson amended the order to include sex. Executive order also requires federal contractors take affirmative action to promote the full realization of equal opportunity for women and more minorities. Under the Department of Labor, this monitors all federal contractors, including campuses, and has developed regulations to which these contractors adhere. Contractors employing more than 50 people and having federal contracts totaling more than 50K, compliance with these regulations includes disseminating and enforcing non-discrimination, establishing a written affirmative action plan and placement goals for women and minorities. So that's the thing, is that there's placement goals for women and minorities.
Quotas, in
Um,
other words.
quotas. And so implementing and action-oriented programs for accomplishing these goals. In addition, an official organization must be assigned additional responsibility for implementation of equal employment opportunity in the affirmative action program. So yeah, there's like you and I would say there's not like a huge problem with like equal opportunity employment. Like they can't just throw your resume out because you're black or a woman or whatever. But the fact that there's quotas to get positions means that especially when like the era of corporate, what was I thinking? Like you saw like that S&P 500 article about like 96% of jobs went to non-white males in the last 10 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you suddenly decide that you have to catch up on those quotas and like be representative, like you can do the math and it's like, oh, if by the way, do you have your cat yet?
So I do, yes. He was actually watching me from the top of the stairs a couple minutes ago, so that's why I was looking up a lot. But he's still a little bit skittish,
Uh,
so I can't go and just get him and bring him onto the show yet.
that's fair. No, no, give him a minute.
No, he's
Um,
coming out more. Like I've had him. It's been a week, and it'll actually be 2 weeks on Sunday. So he's still relatively new. But we've gotten to the point now where he'll finally actually let me see him, which it's just a little bit longer, and he'll be a love sponge. But for right
do you
now, he's the void.
do you give him treats and
Oh yeah.
stuff like that?
Like I
Okay.
talk to him, I give him treats. He's just I don't know a whole lot about his past. When I adopted him, like I am for starters, I am his third home in his 7 months of existence, which is kind of rough. And he did break his leg at some point, and the lady I adopted him from wasn't really sure how it happened because it happened with the first family. So maybe he's a little skittish because of that. So if it takes him a little bit more time, that's fine. When I was younger, I had a cat who was kind of like that. She had a broken jaw when she was young, but we adopted her, and for the first couple of weeks, like we really only saw her briefly a few times at night when she wanted to come up to eat, but otherwise she would hide a lot, and it just took her some time to get used to people. But he's getting used to me. He's getting a
Yeah.
lot comfier in the apartment. I made him a nice little spot upstairs in front of the window with like a blanket, and he was roasting in the sun earlier. I can tell. So he's doing cat things. It's working.
Okay. Good. Good. Um. So yeah. Anyways, any closing thoughts? Thank you for
um,
sharing about the cat.
of course, yeah.
We're going on like an hour 20 now.
No, that's good. It's been a good episode. Like there's a lot to cover, a lot's happened. I'm sure the next time we meet again, lots more will happen because I don't know. Like
History is accelerating
it is.
currently.
It really is. Like the pendulum is swinging hard. Like it was like kind of pushing. Now we're like, and we're already over here now. So it's still going up. But I'm sure things are going to get even more interesting as things go on because I don't mean this to come off as like a pro Trump individual because he's a politician like any other, but like it'll be interesting to see what he does knowing that he does not have to run for reelection. Like I feel like he might be a little well, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? That's all I can say is like if we thought the first term, if you thought that was wild, we ain't seen nothing yet. That's what I think. Honestly and truly.
Oats.
Any closing thoughts from you, sir?
Um, I'm glad Ross is free.
Yeah.
We were on. We should have talked about this while we were on the topic of Ross,
Mm.
but there was this like outcry, like, oh, he's some drug kingpin who orders hits, and like all these January Sixers got pardons. And it's like, how can you sleep at night knowing that somebody who assaulted a police officer is free on the streets?
Quite well. I want to have a beer with him.
And I was like thinking to myself, like, what about all the BLM
All the
protesters?
BLM protesters, and yeah,
What about
like
that guy who set that lady on fire in the fucking subway?
yeah,
What about the like New York City prosecuting that uh upstanding citizen for
oh Daniel Penny.
restraining the 20 plus time felon. Like, you don't lose sleep about these, like, people who get like 20 plus felonies, violent felonies on their record and just get like released after a few weeks or whatever, like
Well,
being
that's
on the
just
street.
part and parcel of living in a city. But you see, if you storm the Capitol building and walk inside the velvet ropes, you're literally
If you're
worse.
guided by Capitol Police around
Yeah,
the
you
building.
are literally worse than the 9/11 hijackers. You're literally worse than Hitler, bro. Like you assaulted our democracy.
No, it goes back to like some stats where it's like 80% of crime would be eliminated by permanently locking up anybody who has 3 or more convictions. And we don't even have to make it 3. Let's make it 5.
Yeah.
Make it 6. I don't care. They're 70% of crime is committed by people with 7 plus
Yep.
convictions and stuff like that.
So
We were talking to Cybersmith like a month ago or whatever, like 3 weeks ago,
about hard
and asked him
conversations.
about like, what is there any effect of executing 1% of the population per generation? And that's that's where I'm just curious.
I mean, it's where the term decimation came from. I believe is every 1 in 10.
Yeah, but that was a punishment for like if you had a regiment or brigade of soldiers who were like disobeyed orders in battle.
Okay.
You don't want to lose. You don't want to execute an entire like 1,000 men or whatever. But you want to make them.
Pick 100.
You you want to improve morale, so to say. Yeah, you make them draw straws and then you decimate them.
So maybe we're not
And
there
say,
yet.
I mean, have you seen Paths of Glory by Stanley Kubrick before?
I don't think so.
Oh, if you get a chance, add it to your list like
Okay.
immediately. Paths of Glory, and you think it's a World War One film, but it's actually like a legal drama, and it's who's Michael fucking Paths of Glory. Who's the main actor?
Kirk Douglas.
Fucking Kirk Douglas. That's right. That's right. So yeah, Kirk Douglas is the lead. He's the officer who's in command of this French regiment. And yeah, it's one of the best anti-war films. Like Full Metal Jacket's awesome, right? But like Full Metal Jacket, if you maybe watch it just the first time, you might be kind of like, this is like war is cool, like on the first try. Like there's still some cool elements of war or something like that.
Yeah.
Paths of Glory is like the most brutal anti-war film I've seen. And because like the first half of the film is like this failed battle from the French, and the second half of the film is this basically trial for cowardice and a court martial of the soldiers who like were sent into the suicidal battle. And it's like if it were the other way around, it might not be like as impactful. But like the fact that these guys went through that shit, like the first you saw what they went through, and then they get tried for cowardice.
Yeah.
That is the it's like one of my favorite movies. I haven't watched it in a minute, but it's really good.
I'll definitely
So
add that
anyways,
to my list.
yeah. So anyways, I probably went on 4 or 5 tangents
No,
there,
that's
and you
good.
asked me what to
Actually,
close on.
we're gonna actually end on that. Everyone's homework assignment for the next episode. Not that we're gonna discuss it, but you all need to go with me. Excuse me, and go watch Paths of Glory. That's all you
I
need to
feel
do.
like I've always got a little film recommendation. Like I had you watch Confederate States of America. Did
Which
you
was
finish it?
fantastic, by the way. Yes, absolutely fantastic. Like I see again, I see where Dave Chappelle got his humor from, but like it was so well done. I see why Spike Lee is like never really left. I feel like he doesn't get mentioned as much anymore, and like he's put out some stuff that's like not good, but
Yeah.
I see why he's like always still just there. Like he's never forgotten completely, and that alone, that was good. So yeah, Paths of Glory is the next recommendation. And ladies and gentlemen, we'd just like to thank you for joining us for this extended inaugural episode, I guess, of The Altar. So we are once again in a Trump administration. I believe the last president to do this was Taft.
Yeah, non-consecutive terms.
Non-consecutive terms, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting 4 years. I did notice gas came down locally a little bit already. Not a whole lot, a couple cents.
Uh,
I mean,
I wouldn't subscribe stuff that quickly.
no, of course not, no. But I guess we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us next time, which hopefully will be next week. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. And as always, stay safe, and taxation is theft.